Hello, everybody. How are you? So I'm doing this live publicly, but this is really for my membership lounge. I promised them that I would do a post on Jupiter Direct and talk about the rest of September. So I'm just sharing it publicly, although this is really a recording for my membership lounge members. So let's talk about Jupiter Direct. It's happening September 18th. And let's see, I'm just looking at the chart when I'm quiet, just kind of contemplating. But Jupiter is working with several on this particular day. It's working pretty tightly with Neptune. So that's a factor in Jupiter Direct. Neptune is actually retrograde, but working with Jupiter pretty tightly. And then as Jupiter goes direct, it will then exactly conjunct Neptune. So we'll talk more about that. And Jupiter is also loosely conjunct the other distant planets from our sun that are in Capricorn. It's loosely conjunct Pluto and Saturn. And during this time, because Jupiter is linked loosely to Saturn, Saturn is trine the sun at this time on the 18th in mid-September. So in the days coming up as I record this. And then we have the moon also working together with Jupiter, the moon in Libra. We also have Mercury working with Jupiter. Now, these are in a square relationship mathematically. It doesn't, I want to caution on thinking of a trine as always good and a square is always bad. It's just information. It helps you see, A, that the planetary energies are combined. B, it gives you some sense of what's at stake for the person energetically and how a person, especially if you're looking at somebody's chart, but for all of us too, what's at stake energetically? Does it feel more challenging? Does it feel like things just kind of slide into place? Sometimes it could be a thing that's not so great can just slide into place too. And sometimes the challenging thing is actually something you really want to do. You really want it to happen. So you're motivated and excited for the challenge. So it's all in what the person is making of it. So, the challenge could be fun. You could be up for a challenge. Here with Mercury and the moon together, the challenge has a lot to do with talking about how you feel. It's in Libra, so it's really, the moon and Mercury together. It's talking about your feelings. The challenge is, and sometimes it's an internal conversation with yourself. How are you being honest with yourself about how you feel? So maybe it's an internal dialogue. Maybe you're journaling this conversation, but it's challenging because of the square relationship. So there's something that, maybe it's hard for you to talk about your emotions. Maybe it's harder for some people, it's hard to even understand that they're having emotions because they tend to bury them or put them in little boxes. And so there's something challenging as we go into the next few weeks about expressing ourselves, expressing how we feel. And you can see it, if you just take a look at political dialogue, some of the dialogue, we'll call it dialogue. It sometimes seems more like yelling and fighting around the pandemic or, racial, seeking racial justice because there's been racial injustice. People have very emotional reactions to these topics, and they're having very emotional expressions, and it just depends on the person as to how they act out on that. But the themes here have to do with Capricorn and Libra. So this would suggest that working together, that's Libra, being balanced, Libra, Capricorn, so that you can have a long-term plan that makes sense, Capricorn, Saturn, so that long-term change can happen, Pluto, Saturn. So it really points us as to how to behave, how to approach. It really reads like a roadmap. And so on a larger scale, you can see society needing to have balanced discussions, balanced ways of thinking, so that long-term plans can be smart plans, Saturn, long-term plans, Capricorn, can be impactful in a good way and evolve us forward in a healthy way, Pluto. And Jupiter makes all of this very hard to ignore, hard to run away from, because it's acting a little bit like the sun in the sense that it's throwing a spotlight. It expands things. You can think of it like having readers on, or even a microscope, or maybe a telescope, so you can see something really far away. But it expands where it is. The way the sun can throw a big light, it's harder to ignore whatever the sun is touching, or sometimes it's not an exact comparison. But anyway, the suggestion here is that in a larger sense around us in the world, more balance is needed, balanced ways of expressing ourselves, balanced ways of thinking. Of course, most of us understand this intuitively and even logically. We understand that this is what's needed. But there are challenges here to that. That it's, for some reason, really hard for our cultures, our combined cultures, our global culture, our individual country cultures and regional cultures and political cultures. For some reason, it's really challenging to have balanced discussion, balanced ways of planning and thinking that can help us evolve in a healthy way and move forward and be innovative in a healthy way without total societal breakdown and revolution, which is another way Pluto and Jupiter and Uranus and Neptune, they can go either way. They can help everything kind of evolve into a more enlightened way of doing things, but they can also go, there's a low side where, if enough people can't understand and see that having your opinion, individual opinions, whether, a whole country can have kind of a larger opinion about itself in the world, and then individuals have their own opinions, and opinions don't mean very much. They don't actually really matter. Like, if you can have an opinion that, like, I personally don't think, the sun is, spherical. But it doesn't matter what your opinion is. The sun is the sun, and it has the properties of the sun, regardless of your opinion. But unfortunately, we've devolved in a way to a culture of opinions. And there are a lot of forces that have fed into this. Our reality TV, I think, has fed into it, where, the focus is on the individual and made the individual the star, just the average individual. And in a way, there's not all is bad about that, but we have the rise of the opinion, and the opinion, somebody's just musings or hot air being the truth or being important somehow. And actually your opinion, you matter. We all matter as people. We matter as souls and spirits, I believe. But our opinions don't matter. That's not the same as saying an opinion matters. You have value and merit just in being you. You don't have to do anything, say anything, prove anything. You have value. Your opinion, however, is worthless and meaningless. All of ours, mine is too. So an opinion doesn't matter. What matters right now, and so this is both in your personal life and in our larger world, opinions are nothing. But what matters is being able to find the skill and commitment to knitting together productive dialogue about the way we think and feel so that a long-term plan can be forged that is based, hopefully, on logic and learning from the past. That's what's wanted here. Of course, the way it works in the universe, I don't know why it works this way, but you can go that path that I just described of knitting things, using that Libra energy to have productive dialogue around your feelings and your thoughts and, the way you're looking at reality, Capricorn and Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter and what's happening over there and elsewhere, that you can either do that, but we have free choice. And everybody values their freedom. So we're free to totally mess things up. We're free to have everything just evolve into chaos and mayhem. We're totally free to do that. The universe is like, here's this golden pathway of light. You could go here. And it's also saying, here's this path of darkness, and you can go here. You can choose. So that's the choice that's before us, both in our personal lives and as groups as a whole. So what do you want? To me, the answer seems obvious, but there are people out there who really would love mayhem and chaos. I think those people, my opinion is, and maybe my opinion doesn't matter for anything, my opinion is that more people want the pathway of light to occur. Hey, Street Cat 4, nice to see you here. So this is the choice. You want Saturn and Pluto to go direct. Yeah. Yes, I'm ready for some direct planets too. So Jupiter will be the start. And so let's take it down to a personal level. Let's take it into your own life. So it depends on where these hit your chart. But generally speaking, as this is occurring, the areas that I'll focus on here. Oh, hey, Allison. Yeah, I know who you are. Yeah, it's good to see you. It has been a while. So I'm looking at it from the point of view of a Virgo chart, since we're in a time of Virgo as this is occurring. So the themes I'm looking at have Libra positioned in the second house and Capricorn in the fifth house. So for you personally, here are some things to think about. Now, you could also just position this as an Aries chart and get a slightly different read on it. But those themes I just talked about, mayhem versus path of light, that's all, no matter where you place these, in what house, that would be true. But think of it this way, just try it on, see if it fits. So in your own personal life, are you having discussions and thoughts around your feelings, your thoughts around your core values with others? Are you also maybe in addition to that having some discussions around work? Maybe it's time for a review. Maybe it's interviews. Maybe it's again, it could be an internal dialogue, like, do I like my work? Is my work in alignment with who I am and my values? What do I think about my spending habits? Am I overspending? Would I like to make more money? So there could be some internal dialogue going on. You might notice you're having feelings and thoughts about your value system, spending versus saving, spending versus earning. There are also some things going on relationship-wise here. A lot of people may find themselves evaluating their relationships more like their resources, and also are your relationships in alignment with your value system. So you may be talking to others about this, or you may be having, again, this internal dialogue, like, are the people around me, and am I in alignment with them based on our core values? And do they just say they have these values, but they act a different way? Am I okay with that? Do I want to find people who are more in alignment with that? Do I want to find a job more in alignment with who I am and my values? So these are some things that people are kind of thinking about, marinating on, and maybe discussing. Along with that, there's this concept of innovation, maybe your own creativity, innovation, what you can create. It's especially relevant to artists and people with their own businesses, people who want to have their own businesses, people who want to write a book, people who want to do a painting series or series of sculptures. This is especially powerful for those groups of people. It's also powerful for people who are thinking about having children, or there are certain issues going on with the children you have. So be thinking about this idea of values, money, evolution, improvement, having a plan around relationships, art projects, your own business concerns, and children. And you would tie all of this back to what I said in the very beginning, that there are two pathways here. There are more than two pathways. It's not really a binary system. But just for the sake of brevity here, I'm going to say there are two pathways. They're more. They're like a continuum, shades of light and dark. But let's say there are pathways more in the light, and there could be infinite pathways that go in more toward the light. There could be infinite pathways that go more toward the dark. You have, and that makes it even more confusing. They're not just two choices here. And it's learning how to tap into your core values and what you really believe and know in your very being, in your body, not in your head so much. And we're having some balance between what your head is figuring out with logic and your body just knows, and using that as this overall compass to guide you to this land of Capricorn, down or up the path of the mountain goat, and deciding which path to take. I can tell you, let's see, Virgo ascendant. I'm reading a 14-year-old daughter is stuck at home. Yeah, crazy times. Yes, it's so challenging. What might help is really understanding that you're partners and doing everything in your power to show her that you are partners. Yes, you're the mom, so it's a different kind of partnership. It's not the same partnership as, a romantic partnership or a work partnership, but it is a partnership. So I think approaching it like, okay, what's our plan? Street cat for Allison. What's our plan? What have we learned that doesn't work? Given what we've learned, what do we think might work? And then creating a plan together. And maybe the plan gets recreated a lot because Uranus is tied in here, Neptune's tied in here. But there's a lot here about having balanced conversations and ways of looking at things. And also Neptune has an involvement here. It really speaks again to partnership, but a partnership of compassion. So the 14-year-old, in this instance that Allison provides, the 14-year-old needs to have compassion for Allison, and Allison needs to have compassion for the 14-year-old, and both of you need compassion for teachers or society, lawmakers, which can be hard. It can be hard. And that's a part of the challenge here. There are challenging aspects. So just think of, your future, now the present moment forward, because we're built to not be thinking about walking backward through time. We're built as humans to be in the moment and then move forward. We have this perception that we're moving forward. But think of it as there's this continuum where, on one end, there's like an infinite number of choices that lead more toward the light. And then on the other part of the continuum, there are like infinite choices that lead toward the dark. And we have free choice in every moment. And you can course correct, if you find you've gone down a dark pathway of, not talking in a balanced way, not having balanced discussions with others, with yourself, sometimes just within our own mind and soul, we have very imbalanced ways of talking to ourselves. So be a good observer of how you are talking to yourself. Notice any weird kind of inner dialogues you're having. Maybe get it down on paper. Use the power of writing to help you master understanding at least how you're thinking and how you're dialoguing within yourself about big decisions that involve your core values, big decisions around work and money, big decisions around romance. It's going to seem like I'm covering everything because it's just the way the chart is. Big decisions around your art, your creativity, your business, investments, speculative investments. There's a little bit of a cautionary flag here around being overly speculative right now in terms of gambling a little too freely. There's a little bit of a red flag here. And normally I don't even say that. I tend to be more kind of a go for it kind of person. But I mean, I'm looking at the charts. I'm just telling you what's in the chart. So it's not my opinion here. So be careful about real estate, like investments. You want to choose wisely. And maybe that's not even the focus right now. Maybe more the focus is getting a plan together, mapping things out, being more in planning stage right now. So that when it is a better time to take action, you've got your plan, you've really thought it through. So I think that September, even though Jupiter's moving forward, there's so much tied into it. I think there will be forces moving forward in your world, maybe decisions around something to do with your child, decisions around romance, decisions around a job. Things will be moving forward, but the way to move forward is with a plan and with learning from the past and with a balanced way of thinking and being anchored in your values. So that's the way to move forward. So Orient Star Tarot, what about Sag, Sun, Pisces, Ascendant? Well, the advice I'm giving is really for all. So I'm not doing it sign by sign at the moment. I would say this is still true. The theme might shift slightly, but not really that much. You'd be surprised how little, because I'm giving you a very generalized message. It's still the same for you. Orient Star Tarot. I mean, if I was looking at your personal chart, we could get a little more granular, but I'm trying to give you very generic, larger themes that would work for everybody. Thank you for your kind words. So Allison says, I'm terrified of the full moon at the end of the month. It's conjunct your Chiron return. I still do one-on-one. I have minimal times that I do it, but I do still do one, especially for people I've worked with before. Or I have some sense, like I need to make sure you're a right fit for me, but I think you probably are. So terrified, let's talk about being terrified. There's certainly, we could look at what's going on in the world and the chart, and we could pay more attention to those paths that lead more toward darkness. We could pay attention to that. Now, a full moon, or we could pay, just look more neutrally or recognize that a whole spectrum of things could happen. So staying terrified is just creating agony for you. So let's look, what a full moon can do. Chiron is the wounded healer, just very, on a very simplistic level. And so there's some symbolism around that, but you could think more of the wounding, or you could think more of the healing, right? Or you could think that it's all related. It's not one or the other. Yeah, I understand. Usually somebody who's terrified has been through pain. And I'm laughing only because I very much understand that. So let's talk about what a full moon can do. I don't know, in terms of the pain you've suffered, the things that have gone on, if you've been doing work, if you've been healing, if you've been making efforts in your life to kind of course correct yourself in your own life, if you've been doing that internal work, you're working with Chiron in a way to help yourself heal. So whenever you're kind of working with Chiron and you're paying attention to how you allowed yourself to get hurt, or sometimes we're not causing the situation as much as it's how we respond to it. So if you've been doing some internal work on that and kind of, I don't know, other than saying doing the internal work, it's not coming to me now, but, if you've in good faith been trying to learn from the past and move forward and, make good decisions, Chiron is going to work with you. These things out there in the sky that are in the chart, they'll work with you. And the goal with Chiron is to take what's hurt you and turn it back around so that you're helping the world, right? And it can be in a seemingly small way, or it could be a medium way, or it could maybe be much bigger, but you're taking that energy and doing kind of an internal jujitsu with it. It's the pain's coming in, and then you do something with it, and you get to decide what you do with it. Sometimes the pain can feel so intense that we can feel like it has power over us, that pain has power over us. But really, the beauty of just taking a look at yourself and kind of sitting with pain is you actually have power over it. You can take it and it becomes an energy that you can kind of transform into something else. So you might want to think, Allison, about how to transform pain in an alchemical way that creates healing, not only in you, but in the world around you. And use the tenets of Chiron as, to do this in a healing kind of way. It's the way you go about healing matters just as much as the healing itself. You're not just going for an end goal, but it's the way you come to that is also what matters. The journey toward healing is also what matters. So you wouldn't want to heal at any cost, for example, just the way you wouldn't want to make money at any cost. The way you make the money actually matters. The way you set about healing yourself actually matters. An example of healing in a way that's harmful to yourself and others is to do spiritual bypass kind of stuff, where you think that by being on a spiritual path and doing certain things like meditating and doing yoga and reading certain books that are fashionable, that you think that somehow makes you better than others, or maybe because you've I don't know, you kind of hang on to this idea that you have to be positive all the time and that you can't feel your pain or else you're being weak and deciding just to be in pain. You can turn all of that into like a way to shame yourself and others about feeling messy and broken. So you can turn So that's a way of people try to heal themselves through going down the spiritual track, but then they can just, it becomes this toxic kind of healing where it's not healing at all. I'm not saying it very well, but I was just trying to give you an example of how you could heal badly. And it's just by kind of grabbing onto spirituality or evolving, or everybody's talking about being awakened, which there is an awakening phenomenon that can happen with people, but so few people are actually awakened. But a lot of people, maybe I think everybody, once you're born, you're in the awakening process, but people take that on like a badge of honor, and like there are these levels of I'm more awakened than you, I'm more aware than you. That's just an example of how to do the whole spiritual path wrongly and not achieve what Chiron really wants. So I was really trying to explain like what Chiron really wants. It wants you to heal in a way that it is actually healing and not toxic. That was my point. So that's a long, long, long way of getting at your full moon. The full moon can be the reason I was trying to get at like what you may have been doing is that there's a reward. There's a type of fruition that can come with a full moon. There's a type of, it's like picking the fruit off the tree, the literal fruition, and getting a little bit of a reward. Now, it might still come with high emotion. Part of what I was saying early on is this is an emotional time, and there'll be a new moon, and there's a new moon right along with Jupiter, and then we head into the second full moon of the month at the very end, right as September ends and October begins. But what do I want to say? I want to add something here. Yeah, so just in terms of a full moon, think of fruition. Think of, we were talking earlier in this forecast about how the sun can be a light that shines. And a full moon can start to mimic the sun in that way at a full moon. It can become another kind of spotlight that can shine on what is normally hidden or dark, because the moon doesn't emanate light from itself. It just reflects the sun. But in a full moon, it looks like it's emanating light, but it's really just reflecting upon with more light, with more enlightenment. So you may just get some insights around how to heal or how you're still hurting yourself. I don't know what it'll be, but look for a way to be enlightened, meaning that you just have some aha moments, not the big kind of Buddha enlightenment, but like tiny little micro enlightenments. And that's for all of you. So I'm talking to Allison, but this really applies to all of you. This is why group coaching works, because what I'm saying to Allison really applies to all of us in some way. So be thinking of what's come to fruition. What fruit have you borne? And what little mini enlightenments are you getting? Little bits of insight are you getting? And okay, and there's another comment here. It says a T-square that sucks, but we have to be careful how we look at what can be the more challenging aspects. Sometimes we work, like I'm just going to keep on this track of self-work. It can be hard. Because I'm in the business of coaching and I coach myself, the business of self, it's not that we have to improve ourselves, but that kind of growth that helps us shed the pain of the world and learn how to do that. So it's not like we're by doing self-work, it's not that we need to work on ourselves so we can be better. I want to be clear about that. It's that we're doing the work of shedding what is toxic, shedding what doesn't work, and in our lives, and seeing how different choices we make, different things we do or think even can actually be the things that hold us in suffering. The self-work, for lack of a better way of referring to it, is just a way of shedding what hurts and learning how to get out of suffering. It doesn't mean we won't have emotions, but that's the kind of self-work I'm talking about. I'm not saying that you're somehow like at an F as a student human being and you have to get to an A. It's not that kind of hierarchical system. That's Chiron being misused and kind of going toxic. So I would say, Allison, and all of you, like, be very mindful of how you judge yourself. The path to healing and enlightenment starts internally, and there's an endless amount of self-realization and enlightenment we can have. We don't stop doing that until we die. And so, but the goal is to get closer and closer to love, like to remove anything that isn't love and compassion. And so as we go into these weeks, no matter what your life is, no matter what you're facing, the path is always toward getting closer and closer to what pure compassionate love is, love in a bigger sense, and trying to remove what gets in the way of that. I mean, that's on a very much simpler way what all this astrology is about. And you can see, just going back to the mention of the T-square, that it's challenging, that it's challenging. Nobody said it was easy. But the challenge is there's a reward in that challenge. There's a reward in it. I don't know why it's designed that way, but the reward is much sweeter when we've gone through the challenge. I think it actually, because the challenge itself opens our doors to compassion, because we've felt challenged, we've felt pain. We can look upon others who are challenged and in pain and see them differently. We can see things so much differently when we've been through hardship, when we've been through challenges and things that hurt. We see the world differently, inherently. Every time we go through pain and something hard, we then look at others very differently, especially people who might be going through something similar to us. And it gives us so much more compassion. No, it's good. It's good. Thank you. When I do group coaching, this is the way it works. Sometimes I'll work with one person, and I hope everyone's listening and kind of, working alongside Allison and listening to what I'm saying and understanding that all of this applies to you too, and maybe in a different way. So it's good. Thank you for volunteering to be kind of a case study for us, because really, we got to the heart of the matter that we're really just all on a pathway of shedding what isn't love, shedding what, prevents us from feeling full, compassionate love. And we're being challenged greatly. It's hard. We're in a world that's very contentious right now. People are very worked up and angry. There's, the kind of the undercurrent of a civil war in my own country, in the US, and people don't want to call it that because we live in this very, it's all about Hollywood and glamour, but there's like this civil war brewing that's, for real. And, it provides yet another barrier to getting close to love. So, we're on this cultural journey that's larger, and we're on these individual journeys, but we're really all linked together so tightly. We're far more connected than we know. So, that's pretty much it. That's a lot. That's what we're going through right now. And, the moon events, because they are creating emotion, and there's so much going on. Just know emotion's not going to kill you. Sit with the emotion with kindness and compassion. When the emotion comes, understand it's not going to kill you. And if you can just understand you're kind of a container as it passes through, just sit with it and be compassionate with that emotion. It might be anger and rage. Just sit with it as a friend. Don't get pulled into it and sucked into it so that you become insane with it, but sit with it like a friend. Sit with pain and discomfort like a friend and just hang out, and it will dissipate. It will dissipate. And learning to do that, even just, it's amazing once you decide you're going to sit with something painful, how little time is actually required to get relief. So it's a kind of a practice to remind yourself when you're feeling a really strong emotion, as we will, in these times that we're in. Just practice reminding, kind of waking up from the strong emotion, like, okay, I'm feeling a really, so this is what I tell my clients and my kids, I'm feeling a really strong emotion right now. So that's the first step, is just noticing that that's what's happening. I'm feeling a really strong emotion right now. And then once you have that realization, then you can remember to, okay, I'm just going to sit with this emotion and just hang out with it and be present. Like, I'm not going to try to go just binge on Netflix to ignore the emotion, or eat to ignore the emotion, or yell at somebody to ignore my own pain, but just hang out with it without trying to run away from it. And even if it's, especially sadness and grief, it feels like knives are attacking your chest and heart. I know, I've been through it, so I know, but it actually won't kill you. It just feels really bad for a few minutes. But it really takes a shockingly short amount of time once you sit with yourself compassionately to get through a strong emotion. So there are going to be strong emotions that are coming and going, like kind of ebbing and flowing over the next few months. We're going to have them. We're going to have them. So we've got to learn how to be. What do we do with this intense emotion? It's really a sign, our emotions are a sign that, not that we need to go yell at somebody or get angry or feel bad about ourselves. It's really just a sign that we're thinking about something a certain way. But that's more advanced. I'm not doing a full-on coaching session here, but just I think one thing we can all practice is, just as the astrology is intense. I'm not going to lie, it's obviously intense. Like, it would be silly for me to say it wasn't. But we could all benefit, starting now, with this lovely Libra, Mercury and the moon going through at the same time. All this is happening over the next few days, to just notice that we're having, like, being able to step back and saying, I'm having a really strong emotion right now. And then just hanging out with it without going into a diatribe. Really stay present in the moment. And it's an amazing thing how healing that is. So I promise you, if you've got a Chiron event coming up, if you practice what I just said, maybe you'll get some serious healing. You'll have a different kind of path forward and some fruition around that. So try it out. All of you, really. Allison was helping all of us, reminding me too to do this. So, because it's going to hit all of us. We're all in this together, all of us. We're all tightly connected. So just remember that. All right. It's good to see everybody here. And I'll pop back in soon. All right. Bye.